Always surround yourself with positive people. But why? What's the reason behind this? What's the impact if we don't? And some personal stories of how I've changed my thinking. A couple of things that's going on for me that I wanted to share with you, and this will tie in quite nicely, I think, with some of the examples I've spoken about in the past. One of the things I do talk about is about surrounding ourselves with positivity or positive people, or who aspire, or who kind of like have optimism as their first gear or first response, and need to look to background people who have more of a negative approach, who see more problems than solutions. And the reason behind this is about trying to find the right energies to surround us, which lift us up to the goals we're after, rather than being not so much pulled down, but being found limited in achieving what we're looking to do. And I talk about, you can make that with people. You can have people who surround you, who you aspire in some form, or you find they lift you up with their optimism. But don't forget, that's also things that can be do with books or quotes or any kind of form. It doesn't need to be just a person, but increasing that energy around you is super important, and decreasing, or as I say, putting the background, the more negative, less useful, more limiting energies, go best in the background. My reason I push this is because I think this is what we need to create the right environment for us to grow, to nurture our growth, to nurture us to whatever changes you want to have happen. So to clarify though, I love my dad. I think he's an amazing man and have the highest regard for him. There is one thing I can think of that I wish I could give back or not have learnt from him, and that was worry, and that was not anxiety so much, but concern or questioning, which he brought to exchange the discussions we had, and from far back as I can remember. And an example of one has been relatively recent, and I was talking to him about having a journey, and him saying, well, you need to leave plenty of time to get to the destination. And I said I had. Absolutely fine, checked it all out. And he said, no, add more time, because you never know, there's going to be traffic and this and that. Add more time to it. And I went, no, it's okay. I know the route. I've checked it out. It'll be about 45 minutes. It'll be okay. And I'll check it in the morning as well, so there's plenty of time. He went to, oh yes, but you don't know about this, you don't know about that. All these things could happen. You get a list of things which, potentially, in the realm of probability, could happen, but weren't reasonable to expect to happen. Yet he was pushing this concern and trying to lay out what I should be doing, adding more time to the journey, and etc., etc. And it was an interesting moment for me to step away from that conversation and look at it from a different perspective and think, wow, so this is where it comes from for me, where it's doubt and questioning and worry that comes into play, which creates this anxiety over what could happen. Naturally enough, they came for the journey and it was absolutely fine. In fact, I got there in better time than I had predicted. But it did cause me to reflect about how these little nuances in conversation can generate anxiety, not only in the person, but the person they're talking to as well. Or have I thought about these things? Oh, am I worrying? Have I not worried enough? Should I be kind of checking more things? This way of questioning ourselves when we haven't experienced it in the past and we are destabilizing certainty, I wouldn't say it's the healthiest or the most useful filter to see things in. And I enjoy the ability to kind of go back to my dad and say, look, it was absolutely fine. None of those things you were worried about happened. In fact, I made it on time. But for this conversation, it's about just noticing actually, when are we being pulled into someone else's view of the world? When you encounter that situation, stay true to yourself about what you feel is correct and try and look to take a different perspective on the conversation and see it from a different way. And that might give you a way of being curious to how or why this other person is creating their set of perspectives which maybe aren't really useful for you. If anything from the video, look to notice these little changes, little conversations you can get called into, and the energy the other person brings to it. And when you notice that, if they aren't supporting what you're doing or undermining it, look to kind of create that distance from that kind of person, that maybe you acknowledge their information, but then look to retreat and leave it at that and keep the faith with yourself. It's so important to notice these things, because with continued exposure, we can get pulled into thinking this in a regular way. Not in a By being exposed to this kind of thinking, what can happen is that we can start to take that thinking on ourselves. We can't start to worry a bit more and not trust ourselves a bit more, double guess ourselves a bit more, and that fracturing of certainty is unuseful way of seeing things. So, if anything, it's about looking to notice as conversations we're having, who we're having them with, what's the energy they're giving to it. Are they adding something positive and optimistic towards it, or are they actually detracting? And you're going to have to make the judgment between someone being helpful and useful to someone who's adding too many layers of concern, too many points of pressure or anxiety, which aren't really useful, don't really help. And to be fair, they're not based in a sense of reality or a sense of being realistic. So, as always, extract what you can from that. I'll catch you next time.